and welcome to the Dicebreaker podcast. This is episode 50. It feels like it should be some kind of celebration.
Sorry, Matt, there's an alarm going off somewhere. I don't know where.
It's the 50 alarm, that's it. They've come for us.
Sorry, that triggered early. That's my alarm that I set so that when I reach 50, I can jump off something. But yeah, welcome back to the Dicebreaker podcast.
Oh my god!
Live fast, die young, Meehan.
What's that? Cash is
Matt.
here
50.
or something.
Almost around a year. We were just saying this before the podcast started. We skipped 1 week over Christmas because we were on holiday. But I believe, other than that, it's been every week for almost 1 round year.
Is it a year though? Is it a year?
I mean,
because
52 weeks is in fact a year.
Kind of feels like just this time of stasis. Where we're just floating about.
It's a rounding error in the millennia of history.
I reckon when we get to 2022, we're just like, it's like setting the clocks back. We just do 2021 again. And then everyone will catch up on all the time that they've missed. That's how it'll work, right?
Yeah.
That's how time works.
Yeah.
I don't know who's
like
in charge of the biological clocks, but we'll get that bit sorted as well. And then,
it's like Y2K, but wasn't that a whole... At one point, I think that was a Y2K solution, is just skip the year 2000 or something like that.
Yeah.
There's something strange about it.
They were going to just like run out of space everywhere or something.
And planes were going to fall from the sky. And
some stupid idiot stuff. I don't know.
And then 2012 with the Mayan calendar stuff, which didn't pass, but did result in a very bad film.
Yes.
God,
a really terrible film.
Yeah, which basically spawned its own genre, which Gerald Butler seems to be making a good deal of money from. Yeah. Shout out to Gerald Butler. I'm sure he's listening.
Good job, Gerard.
We should probably introduce ourselves because we haven't even done that bit yet. We're already on to Gerard Butler. I'm Matt Jarvis. I'm the editor-in-chief of Dicebreaker. I am, of course, joined by 2 of the team. This week we're joined by Alex Meehan, staff writer for Dicebreaker.
Hey, 50 podcasts. Still going.
What's up, you big 50s?
Hey, calling out those 50s. Yeah, all I want, Matt Jarvis, is for us to have a soundboard.
Well, good news. When we get to episode 100, that's the soundboard. They just give you one.
Is that what happened?
I am going to hold you to that.
Yeah.
It's like the Queen sends out letters to people that turn 100.
Yeah.
Big podcast has to send you a soundboard.
Yeah. I know which one I prefer. Yeah, definitely the latter. I don't want a stupid letter.
They invite you into that club where everyone has the same sponsors, where they all wear the same clothes and use the same toothbrush. And
does that mean
I'm looking forward to my roll mattress.
Yeah. Do I get HelloFresh and
and the Dollar Shave Club and
Dollar Shave Club.
Is the
one with
God.
the one with the boxes. There's a boxes one.
Just some really fantastic brands that we're really looking forward to hopefully working with.
Yeah, this is why they haven't sponsored us yet, because we give it away for free. Look, we're not in it for the money. We're in it.
Oh, because I said boxes, and therefore all of the boxer
big
brands.
Boxes.
Yeah, big boxes.
Big pant.
Of course, joining us also is Michael Wills-Whelan.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's
New
me,
head
Michael
of video.
New head of
video. Congratulations. First podcast as head of video for Dicebreaker.
Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah, we handed you the keys to the metaphorical city. And now...
and then we turned up to the city and you were like, all right, Wills, where's the keys? I'm like, oh, I thought you had them. But no, yeah, I've stepped up to
the streets.
My dad's big hairy shoes. So we're gonna...
Why are shoes hairy?
Well, because, he's hairy. I don't know. We're both hairy. Anyway.
I don't like that.
But yeah, I'm here. I'm queer, and I'm ready to do some...
I knew you were going to say
I'm ready to do some video nonsense.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. We're, of course, here to talk... to talk around board games at point. Mostly we're meant to here to talk about board games and tabletop RPGs and all that's happening in the world of tabletop. And as usual, let's kick off with what we've been playing. Wills, new head of video. Let's go to you first.
Yeah, so I've just desperately typing it into the Google now. But I haven't been I haven't played a lot of tabletop stuff recently, apart from me and Loli's finally got around to playing Micro Macro, which is very, very good. And you can see I'm just putting that in now as well. You can see our
it's happening in real time.
I know, right? It's like one of those like interactive experiences, like you go to the theater where everything's happening around you. You know, it's like one of those, but we're doing it in a Google Doc instead.
Knees on keen.
Whoa! Goodness me! I definitely want that on the soundboard.
Anyway, yes, Mies on keen. That should be on the soundboard. And I'm Mies on keen to use it.
You came up with it.
Yes, it's your fault.
Look, I can despise my own creation as I do with so many things.
Yeah, I mean, creators around the world are familiar with that, to be fair. Right, so anyway, I've not played many board games. However, I have been playing, and this is going to be important because we're actually going to be doing a list video on it, hopefully this week, but maybe the week after. A list of the best digital card games. So I've been playing some digital card games. I just tried to log into Duelist and realised that it's been shut down.
I should have told you, because when you wrote the name the other day, I was like, why does that ring a bell with me? I just don't know. And it's because
something... Didn't they? Maybe they got like a new expansion, or
no, it's because I watched a video about basically how it had been shut down of the servers. So maybe I should have said something to you then, but I didn't remember.
Yeah, that was like, I mean, it reminded me a lot of Summoner Wars, and Summoner Wars is getting a digital version coming soon. So I mean, you know, hopefully that'll fill that gap, sort of thing. But yeah, so I've been playing a lot of digital card games that I'm a big fan of. Recently started playing Fights in Tight Spaces, which is a very, very recent release. I think it's still in early access, but it just came out for the public. It's got like this kind of super hot aesthetic where it's like all white with like a character who's in black and white, and then all of the enemies around you are like monochrome, and they'll be like yellow and red and what have you. But it's one of those kind of like Slay the Spire style like deck building games where you start with crap deck, and after every encounter you get new cards that get added in. You upgrade them and you get rid of the ones you don't like anymore, and things get better and better and better as you go. But the thing that makes it different from all the other ones is that, just like Summoner Wars, one of my favorite card games, it uses those cards in a grid-based like movement, like tactical map. So it's a tight space. So you're fighting in like bars and bathrooms and like in the back of a van.
So your everyday life then, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm always
fights.
getting into scraps. That is the one thing that the pandemic has really taken away from me.
Yeah, bottling.
My ability to go into a random action cutscene from a Michael Bay film at any time. So you've got like a sort of grid-based thing, and like people will attack what's in front of them, and then you'll have like people with guns who will be like shooting in a direction. So you use not only like, I'm going to play a card that does damage, but also it's like, okay, I'm doing a card that will do damage but also knock them back into the direction of like, someone who's holding up a gun, so when they fire it'll actually hit them instead. It reminded me a lot of and I'm talking about a lot of video games at the moment, but they are video games. It reminded me a lot of Into the Breach, which is a very good game.
I still haven't played. It's sat on my desktop.
But if you can imagine that, but with the deck building from Slay the Spire, like it's a pretty good combo. And it's got a very like slick aesthetic. It's got like a bit of a Bond theme kind of like vibe to it, where you're a bit probably more Daniel Craig Bond than any others, but
When you said Bond theme, I was expecting like Goldfinger, like something like that. But no, it's just an aesthetic. Okay.
No, you know the aesthetic of a Bond theme.
Yeah.
Like intro. Though.
Yeah.
Like it's got that kind of vibe to it. Like I remember there's like a VR game called I Expect You to Die, which has like one that's happening around you as well. It's got that kind of vibe to it.
Are there shadows of women with hammers and sickles in it?
Very subtle imagery in those ones, weren't there?
A lot of bullets coming out of guns.
No, it's like they don't do a Bond theme, but they like it is like you are playing through one kind of thing. But one of the cool things as well is like it does all these little animations of like, you'll do like a sort of elbow around the side. Oh my god, what are they?
Oh, that was a really great Foley effect.
Thanks very much. I just dropped my phone. Or you'll like do a flying kick and do like a roundhouse and counter people and stuff. And although it just sort of plays out in turn-based fashion, you can hit replay at the end, so you see like the whole thing, kind of like the end of Super Hot, where you just see everything in real time, which is really fun. But yeah, so that's really cool. And one that is like kind of a card game, kind of like a weird like tile placement management game, is Loop Hero, which has been really popular recently. A little bit of an indie darling that's come out. It's kind of like you start with just like a little path, and your little hero, you can't like interact with him whatsoever. He'll just do whatever comes up next to him. He'll walk down the path. If he runs into someone, he'll fight someone, and it feels very board gamey. Like it is absolutely like something that like a board game design is probably inspired, I imagine. But you'll walk down this path and then go into monsters and fight them. Every time you get a monster, you get like a drop, and that could be like an equipment, like a sword or a shield or whatever. But you'll also get these little cards, and you can select, like, you build up what those cards are going to be at the start of the round, so you can kind of deck build as well. But you get like, say you get like a mountain card, or like a meadow card, or like a building, or like a vampire mansion or whatever. You start placing those on this little grid around the path, and you start rebuilding the world, because it's like, the lore is that like the world has been like forgotten, so you're like remembering it, and it's literally taking shape around you as you remember. But then every time you place something, like, it makes the world more dangerous as well. So like you can place down little rocks and things, and they'll give you health and things like that. You place too many rocks, like goblins will turn up, or like you can place down little spider burrows to give you more enemies to fight, because the more enemies you fight, the better and stronger you get, and all that kind of stuff. And you go around this little loop, and it's got a very sort of like push your luck element, where it's like, when do I stop? Like, when do I stop adventuring and just take what I've got and then go back to camp, which is very cool. And it's a bit like, it's got card game elements as opposed to being like a straight up digital card game, but like that one's really impressed me recently as well. And the aesthetic is really lovely. Some really, really nice pixel art as well. So yeah, a lot of digital stuff recently, but some very good digital board gamey things.
Yeah, I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
Meehan had a philosophical discussion over whether I should be allowed to make the list in the Slack when I was talking about that. It's like, oh, well, Wheels, I don't know. It's not a board game, so we're going to have to put you back in the naughty step if you keep carrying on like this.
The power's gone straight to your head, hasn't it?
You're pushing it, Wheels. You're pushing it. The
2 days on the job and you're like, here we go.
Right, it's a video game website now.
Dice, never heard of them. All right, if that's all you've been playing, Alex Meehan, tell us. Your list is very long this week. I saw it in the doc.
Yeah, I've been playing loads of board games this week. Yeah, I've been playing a lot this week. It's just, it just swings around about. Some weeks nothing much happens, other weeks it's packed. So this week I've been playing some old favourites, like Hanabi, which I very much enjoy. It's a co-op card game, which is very unusual. You can only see your allies, your other players' hands of cards. So you have to give them clues as to what they have, so then they can play the correct cards in the right order and then make the best fireworks display. And so we didn't do too bad, considering it was 1, late, and 2, we had quite a few new players. But there's a really good version on Board Game Arena. It actually works really well. So we played that. We played Six in a Mit, which is becoming a favourite among our friend group, because it's just a really great drinking game and just casual game. Yeah, so you drink. That's good to know. Yeah, you take a certain amount of drink every time you take balls. So they're called balls.
Okay? It's the emphasis.
It was the emphasis. You could have just said, every time you take the balls in the game, but you went every time you take balls.
It's because the balls are bad. You gotta watch out for them. Yeah, so we're playing that a lot, as well as Ink and Gold, also known as Diamant. I prefer the name Diamant, and also I prefer the artwork for Diamant to Ink and Gold. But they're basically the same game. And yeah, you have to venture into a temple But it's full of spiders and zombies and snakes and fire, which are all really scary things. But apparently your adventurers can handle one lot of each. But 2 lots of one, no, that's too much, mate. Too much. Too many snakes.
It's a very board game thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look, I can fight 1 snake a day, but 2?
What?
Come
2?
on now.
No,
One
mate.
spider or one zombie, I'll take either.
That's also on Board Game Arena, and that's a lot of fun. And again, you can turn that into a drinking game really easily. So, just for
I'll be
fun.
honest, it just sounds like you've been getting tanked this week and just having to play board games at the same time. Like, oh yeah, it's a drinking game now.
I like the idea that Meehan thinks she's played all these games, but actually she was just incredibly pissed just clicking on things.
Oh, no, it's spiders! There's spiders! I also played a bit of Overboss again, because my flatmate really likes that game. I like it well enough. I think it's just because it's quick. It takes forever to set up, though, for a game that lasts, like 15, 20 minutes.
That is a problem with a lot of games like that, where it's like, if the setup takes longer than how it takes to play, it just doesn't ever feel worth it to get off the shelf.
I wouldn't say it takes longer than 15 minutes. It's just like you have to separate a lot of stuff from other stuff. There's not a huge amount there. It's just like we were getting it ready and we were just saying, this kind of takes a while to do considering how quick it is to play. But, it is enjoyable. I like that game. I think my flatmate likes it a lot more. It was fun. Although at one point I didn't realise I was cheating, so... Oh no! My professionalism has gone down the toilet. Revoke me of my licence, Matt Jarvis. I'm out. I'm disgraced.
You're out of the Magician's Alliance.
Yeah. We also played some more Pandemic Legacy Season 1, yet we still haven't finished it. This might be the longest anyone has ever taken to finish.
Well, it's meant to be like a year, right? So if you just play...
We've been playing for longer than a year. It's just because it's... Like, every game of it is somewhat different. But at its core, it's basically the same game every time. So you don't really want to play it too often because then it gets stale. But then when you come back to it after a while, you're like, oh yeah, this is really good because the small changes from each month make it feel different enough that it's not tiring. And I think we made it to September, so we're not too far behind, and we won again. So this is our winning streak is continuing. Maybe we're just amazing at Pandemic.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe we should enter in one of those tournaments and then win loads of money.
They're a big deal, those things.
They're really interesting the way they do them as well, where you just have identical setups.
Yeah, I played in one of those once, an amateur one. And we didn't win. But I'm not blaming it on me, I'm blaming it on one of my other, teammates. It was their fault, not me.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen me playing Pandemic Legacy? A pro, basically.
I mean, no, I haven't, but you've told me about it.
Yeah!
That's what marks you out as well as a great teammate, is immediately blaming the rest of your team. Like, no, it couldn't possibly be me, I'm great.
I never said it to their faces. Just saying it now.
No, you just made it public record on a podcast.
And I've also been playing a role-playing game called Low Stakes, which is really fun. So I ran a campaign over the weekend for a group of friends, and it's heavily inspired by What We Do in the Shadows, the vampire film / television series.
That's the first time I've seen it written down, because you've always just sort of said, because I didn't know what it was about, but you've said it like Low Stakes a few times. I thought it was kind of like a sort of Zen kind of it's an RPG without all of the troubles, but I've just seen stakes written down. I'm like, oh, okay, right.
Low stakes, not meat stakes, the other stakes, because it's a pun on vampire stuff, because there are vampires in it and werewolves and ghosts, and you can be like a mystic human as well. And it's just all about the players live in a house together and they just do like ordinary stuff, but they just happen to be supernatural being. And they get into loads of shenanigans and hijinks because it's basically the structure of it is like a sitcom. Like it's designed to be played in scenes. There are lead characters. There's a mechanic where someone can look to the camera like a confessional and just start slagging off their friends or themselves. It's really funny. I think it's a little bit difficult for people who maybe are not so experienced with role-playing games because it takes a lot more to kind of have the confidence to suddenly just start talking to like a fictional camera. But they got into it a lot more as they went, and it was really funny, and it does just encourages like, you know, them trying to get one-ups on one another, but also there is a fundamental emotional core to it. And as someone who's been watching a lot of sitcoms recently, just because they're comforting and you can just have them on in the background, like, it was fun to kind of make my own sitcom. So we had a lot of fun with that. It's really rules light. I think you can get it on Drive-Thru RPG at the moment for, like, not a lot. Yeah, I would recommend it. It's good.
Have I told you both my fun history fact about steaks?
No.
No? What steaks are we talking about here?
No.
We're talking about wooden steaks.
Okay.
I got a fun history fact about steaks and some etymology.
Oh wow! Is this what happens when you become head of video? You just
yeah. You just get all these random facts inside your head.
You put on a pair of glasses and you start wearing a suit and smoking a pipe, and you're suddenly a professor.
When Johnny handed over the reins, he like decompressed and all of this information just flowed out into my head. But so right during like, you know, medieval wars, like especially during the sort of time period where the English longbow was like a really prominent weapon that was used. It was pretty common for archers to have massive wooden stakes like driven into the ground in front of them because it would stop cavalry like charging into them. But you'd get into this problem where like the archers were kind of locked down because you'd have to physically like move the stakes around to actually move and still be protected. So if you found that your bowmen were out of range and couldn't actually hit the opposing army, you would need to get closer, obviously, so that you'd have a better shot. But you'd also have to raise the stakes to get rid of your protection. Yeah, so it's literally a gamble to take the stakes out of the ground because suddenly you're not protected by them anymore. To move closer, put them back in and shoot, so you've got better range. So you are literally raising the stakes out of the ground.
Oh mate, this podcast has got everything, right?
It's so
got
educational.
Brands. It's got educational purpose. It's got a little bit of humour. Just a bit.
Just a cross.
That's what we're here for. The brands, then the learning.
Now, when we can learn about brands, that's when things get real.
That's a real dark place to go. I think, isn't it like the Hugo Boss website or the Chanel website, one of the fashion houses that just skips like 1938 to 1945.
Yeah, no. Hugo Boss was like they create Nazi uniforms. Wasn't that the thing? Yeah.
Oh boy,
it's fun.
Hey, Matt Jarvis, what have you been
More
playing?
history facts.
It's me. Speaking of history,
yes.
Pirates, they're from a while ago, aren't they?
They are.
Whoa! What? No,
Look at that.
Matt
That's
Jarvis.
that.
I regret to
Professional
inform you that there's
segue.
still a thing today. Yeah.
You've just crushed my hopes and dreams because I think we might have had this discussion that I always wanted to be a pirate and have my own ship because we watched the Muppets Treasure Island. Yeah, and I want to be Tim Curry on a ship.
My favourite part of that entire film. Sorry, Matt. I know you were just about to talk about the game.
I will never pass up the opportunity to talk about Muppet Treasure Island.
It's, I mean, look, I'm not going to come out swinging or anything. It's my favourite Muppet film. I personally think it's better than Christmas Carol. I know that Christmas Carol is much loved, but I do think it's overall a better film. And my favourite part is where they're like, they're singing the song that they sing when they're like, we're off for adventure or whatever. And there's that bit where Long John and Jim Lad are sat in the crow's nest, and Jim's doing his buddy like I'm a little boy in a musical production where it's like,
Yeah.
singing, and then Tim Curry just like, yeah, right, shut up. Let me tell you how to sing. And we're off for our adventure. It's so good.
He puts
just
his
absolutely nails him. He should have just grabbed him by the head and slam dunked him for a hoop.
Tim Curry puts his heart and soul into that performance. He loves every minute of it.
It's his finest role. It's his finest role.
Yeah.
It's an incredible film.
The bit where he says, "It's my only number."
Show me you've been practicing, lads.
Right, Matt Jarvis,
So
tell us
pirates,
about Forgotten
We've got
Waters.
everyone in a nautical mood.
Yeah, weirdly, I watched some of the old Muppet shows over the weekend on a Muppet-related note, and my favourite thing about all of them is, like Tim Curry, is all of the celebrities they got on, they all really go for it. Like, so we watched the one with Julie Andrews, and it's like, there's no doubting at any point that they're giving it their all. Like, you think of celebrities nowadays, like if you got Post Malone on the Muppets or something, I just feel like
He was in Pokemon, Matt.
and he was in Fortnite or something. But that's the thing, right? It's like that's not really anything. Like, the real test of celebrity.
How well do you deal with a puppet?
Exactly. Yeah. It's very good stuff. But yeah, so I've been playing a pirate game, Forgotten Waters, which came out last year, but I actually bought myself a copy this year because it's been kind of sat on my list of wanting to play it for a while, and it's really, really good.
I've heard a lot of good things about it.
It's really good. So actually, kind of bouncing off of talking about setup times, one of the really nice things here is that it has an element of like above and below and Jaws of the Line, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Line, in that you just have a big old flip book. And those are your locations. Yeah. So you've got a kind of a map board that's about the size of a, like small plate. It's not particularly large. And you track your ship moving around there. But when you move to a location on the board, you open to that page and it has all of the actions you can do. And then you just place your pawns, who represent different crew members of the ship, straight on that page. And then you do the stuff. And then it combines with a companion app, or an app that runs in a browser window, which has full voice acting.
Yeah!
From Christopher Sabat, famous from being Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z.
What?
Also the voice of Bulma, whose name Monica Rial, I think. I hope that's right. I think our friend ProZD, who has shown up on this channel, is in there. Like, it's quite a cast, and they are A, giving it their all, speaking of Tim Curry, and B, the writing is really funny. Yeah. It's genuinely very funny. There's a bit where, so we were playing one of the scenarios and we went to an island and we came across something and the writing was basically like, oh yeah, this seems interesting. There's like carvings and markings of like an ancient civilization, but it's not treasure, so you get bored and walk away. And it's got that kind of tongue-in-cheekness to it. It knows what it's going for. Like, the voice acting is genuinely very good.
I really want to play this now. Ever since I wrote a news story on it last year, I was like, I really want to play this game. And then through various reasons, we just couldn't get a copy. And now I am invested, so I might also grab myself. Because is it a legacy style game?
No, so it's interesting. It's kind of like, so I believe it's co-designed by a number of people. So I think it's J. Arthur Ellis, Isaac Vega, maybe Colby Dausch. Apologies if I'm forgetting anyone there. So there are some big names behind it, like Isaac Vega, obviously co-designer of Dead of Winter. There are, and it comes from Plaid Hat, who did Dead of Winter. So it's powered by the Crossroads series. So it doesn't have legacy elements as such. So when you play, you're not tearing anything up. It's not multiple connected sessions, but the companion app, browser-based thing, has different scenarios, and within those scenarios there are randomized elements, so the Crossroads cards, which are now built into the app. And your character sheet is a unique kind of... it's literally like a character sheet from an RPG, and you get a pad of them, and as you play through a session, you will gain stats in exploration or swagger, which is a stat that you can gain and roll in. And you fill in the boxes with a pen. And as you are filling in boxes and also burying treasure, you also have a unique star constellation at the top of your map. And you fill in elements of that, and that progresses your own story. And they do a really fun thing. So you fold the character sheet in half like a little booklet, and you name your pirate, you turn over the page, and then it says like, okay, name a large animal, name a heavy object, name a profession. There's like a little thing like this. And so you fill those in, and then you look down, and there's like a little bit of blurb, which is your backstory, and you take the words that you've written up top and insert them into the story.
Oh, it's Mad Libs.
So, and none of this really has any gameplay effect other than just adding to the kind of silliness and the story of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very story-driven game. So, mine was, I think my pirate was like the seer or something like that. They had some kind of psychic visions. And it said, write a large animal. So I wrote ostrich. Because ostrich is pretty big. I mean, it's not the biggest animal, but I wouldn't want to take one in a fight.
No. That would definitely be on the 10.
That's a 10.
That's a 10.
Yeah.
Not,
So it then said name a heavy object. So I wrote piano. And then I filled in all the questions and then read the blurb. And it was like, yes, my mother was also like a psychic, like clairvoyant. She had a vision of an ostrich and a piano, which was then proven true when she was killed when an ostrich kicked a cart carrying a piano, and it like crushed her and stuff like that. So it's like, it's willing to be very silly with it. It knows exactly what it's doing, but the writing is genuinely good. So it gives it enough of a grounding. But those character sheets, like I say, those are like, they're like roll and write. It's on a pad. So those you discard and you use a fresh one each time. You can download them for free, I think, off their website. So there's like a little bit of legacy element in that is like a permanent thing that you then get rid of. But in terms of the game itself, you go through the scenarios, but a session can be multiple hours long, and it has like a way of saving where you've got to in one session. So you could play it over multiple kind of like half-hour or hour-long sessions. But each kind of full scenario is a self-contained thing. But it's a really smart game. Like the gameplay is not super complicated. The emphasis is very much on the flavor. So, like I say, you have these different stats. You go to a location on the board, which is like a hex board, and you pick tiles and turn the tiles over, and each tile has a number. You put the number into the app, and the app kind of randomly picks like an event or a place. And then you flip to it in the book, and then it has like a real-time element where you start the timer, and the crew, in order of infamy down to least infamous, has to pick what action they're going to do. But you don't look at specifically what the effect will be. It's like, do you want to work on the ship? Do you want to go exploring? Do you want to hunt? Do you want to... So you have to pick, and if you don't pick quick enough, the crew get discontented. Discontented? The discontent track goes up. So there's an element of that, but it's also semi-co-op because you're pirates. So you're working together. You don't want the ship to sink or you'll all lose. But you're also aiming to be the pirate with the most...
Booty!
Well, treasure is part of it. It's like, I can't remember if it's infamy. I think it's called something else. It's like glory or something like that. But you can, at points, choose to basically do something that is good for you and not for the rest of the crew. So I think we got in a fight with another ship, and we had cannons, and you fire the cannons by picking the action on the board. But under that action, it's like, okay, you can choose to fire the cannons or do this or do that. But then it's also like, or you can just get infamy and you don't actually fire the cannons at all. So you can choose you're basically wanting to be the most infamous and famous pirate among the crew, but you also kind of have to work together. So there's like this fun sense of, oh yeah, we're pirates out for our own good. Like you can steal off each other, you can steal treasure, but you also need to work together at points to make sure your whole ship stays afloat. It's really good. The gameplay is quite simple because a lot of it's handled by the companion app, but it doesn't mean that it feels like it's not simple and boring. It just feels very slick. It's really well considered. So yeah, I'm having a real blast with it. It's the short of this. I'm really enjoying it so far.
Sounds awesome.
Yes.
I want to play it. Great.
Yeah, no.
And I say, and the narration really helps. And it's worth saying they have a remote assistant app as well as the companion app, which allows you to play. If someone has a physical copy, you can use the remote assistant app with other people, and they can play over the internet with you. So you might need to point a webcam at the board. Like, you don't have to. You could take pictures. But the remote assistant app handles all of the kind of other trackers and sliders that would normally be like cardboard. So you only really need to show the main map board and then read out the blurbs. It's really cool. Clever. Yeah, and the website's really well implemented as well. Like, it's really slick. It works really well. So yeah, I'm really impressed.
I mean, that's like there's a lot of really cool things coming out of Flat Out right now. And considering they've just said, we're going back to being independent, that's quite a good sign. Hopefully,
yeah.
We've got a bit of a powerhouse coming on the way. But yeah,
it's like,
cool.
Yeah, I like Dead of Winter, but I don't love Dead of Winter. I think I love Forgotten Waters. Like, I need to play more of it, but I think this is one of those games that I can see myself going back to again and again. And I think they plan to put out DLC for the app. Like, there are variants on there for solo and 2 players, which aren't in the box. So clearly they're updating it with new content. So it's a really good way of getting more of that stuff out to people. So yeah, it's very cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
Let's move on to news.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need, like, speaking of the Muppet, we need the Muppet newscaster. It's like, a plane carrying 10,000 ping pong balls, let's drop them. And then they just drop in from the roof. Except it's, 70 copies of the crew.
Johnny Chiodini's house has collapsed.
Alex Meehan, you put together this week's news section, and you wrote this story about a new game from Richard Garfield.
Yes.
Tell us what is coming up.
Yeah, I'm in the chopper.
For God's sake.
I'm flying over Richard Garfield's house.
You're gonna keep trying. You're gonna keep trying until this is a thing.
So many other metaphors you could try.
I like this one. Richard Garfield, that rogue, who made
that rapscallion.
Yeah, that rapscallion who made Magic the Gathering. It has made a new game called Riders of Chaos,
Riders of Chaos.
Yeah, which doesn't sound generic in the least. There's not a huge amount of information about the game, other than it's going to be an arena strategy game and mounts will be involved. You can, presumably, the riders will have mounts. There will be miniatures. Sounds pretty standard. So hopefully more details about the game will actually come out. This game was announced as part of a kind of reveal from previously called White Wizard Games, now called Wise Wizard Games. So they have rebranded themselves, and for reasons related to, according to their COO, that the previous name was a reference to Gandalf, the White Wizard. But apparently a lot of people weren't getting the reference. So they've changed it in light of that. That's what they've said. As a, quote, response to feedback. So there you go. And they also,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody gets my references either. I don't.
That was their reasoning they provided. So there might be other reasonings that they haven't said, but that's their reasoning. They've also revealed some new details on Star Realms: Rise of Empire, which was announced. Was it earlier this year or last year?
I think it was last year.
Yeah.
I seem to remember it being a while back that they kind of briefly mentioned it.
And it's going to be a prequel to Star Realms, which is a game that Lolies likes to play a lot. And it's going to be a legacy style game, apparently, where eventually you'll end up with your own sort of set of faction decks by the end, to presumably using the standard game, although they didn't confirm that. Sounds interesting. And they also revealed 2 brand new titles, both of them deck builders. One of again, names that floor me. Robot Quest Arena.
Whoa.
And Hero Realms.
We got an AI to generate 4K titles, and this is what they came out with. I think Hero Realms has been out for a little while.
No,
it's got a subtitle.
It's specifically... Yeah, you didn't give me a minute. Hero Realms Dungeon of Fandar.
Dungeon of Fan Art.
I wish.
Oh god, there's so many feet in here.
Whoa. Yeah, so they're both going to be deck builders. One of them, the Robot Quest Arena. You're going to be piloting battle bots to fight other bots. They should have just got the Robot Wars license, frankly.
Yeah.
The Hero Realms one will be like a fairly standard. You're going into a dungeon, you're fighting monsters and stuff. So there you go. So some new games coming from Wise Wizard. No release dates as of yet, but apparently more information will be coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a pretty solid track record so far. I liked Sorcerer, which they put out a couple of years ago. That was pretty interesting. That did some, and Star Realms, obviously, Loli's our Star Realms correspondent.
Yeah.
Loli's absolutely loves Star Realms.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm intrigued. Richard Garfield is both prolific and often a genius, has created some of the best games ever. Netrunner, Magic, King of Tokyo is great for what it is.
Yeah.
But also is, can go the other way sometimes and just, lesser memorable titles.
Like most creators, right? I think whenever you create that many games, eventually some of them are probably going to be duds.
Yeah, we call it the Knizia effect. I mean, Garfield's made some great games that aren't Magic. Like you said, King of Tokyo, various other spin-offs related to that. I know we joked about the name. There's not a lot of details available about it, so it's kind of hard to feel enthusiastic when you don't really know, okay, how does this stand out? Because you're not really selling it to me, Wise Wizard, with a name like that, and also there will be miniatures and characters, and I'm like, yep, this sounds like a board game.
Yeah, I feel like Wise Wizard never great with Star Realms pretty generic, Hero Realms pretty generic, Sorcerer a one-word title that's almost impossible to Google.
Yeah, but whenever I see artwork for Sorcerer or that box, because I know we've got a copy in the office, I was instantly drawn to. It looks cool, it stands out. So maybe if the names aren't doing it for us, hopefully the game will. But yeah, that's what's going on with Wise Wizard.
All right, cool.
Moving
on to the...
I'm flying away from Richard Garfield's house. Finally.
On request of the police.
Moving on to the next one. Chase wrote this one up. There's I think we may have mentioned this a little while back, but it's now on Kickstarter, a Terminator RPG, which has already made over $40,000 dollars wise that is. And doesn't have Arnie. Can confirm, no Arnie. Just
moving on.
just robots. Is that meant to be the Terminator? Or is that meant to be?
That's a news feed.
Yeah.
Who's creating the Terminator? I was obviously doing the Terminator.
Or it could have been Wii Sports. To be fair.
They're easily confused.
How dare you, sir?
But yeah, it's so this is from Nightfall Games, who are known for, I've suddenly just immediately forgotten, despite the fact that it's written here. Slay Industries.
Yeah, they did a horror.
They're kind of 90s.
Thingy.
Yeah, techno punk.
Yeah.
Scottish cyberpunk kind of RPG. And it's powered by a similar system, so it's got some powering behind it. It's not just another D&D 5e.
Thank God.
Reskin. It sounds interesting. It's going to be 200 pages. There's quick start rules out now, I think, because it's powered by the S5S system.
1 success die and 5 skill dice.
Yeah. S5S. Yeah, I think you can get some quick start rules for free from Drive Through RPG. I believe. Is there a link in the news story, or there's probably on the Kickstarter
there
page?
is.
There you go.
Yeah, free quick start rules. There it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
In that lovely Dicebreaker pink.
But it's interesting. They kind of describe it as being more of a toolbox approach. So it seems like it's less of a here is a fixed point in the Terminator verse, and more of a. I think the GM is called the director. Looking through that story, so it seems like they're taking the approach of you're in a Terminator film rather than.
Hopefully, not one of the more recent ones. Judging by the quality of those.
Genesis was better than it had any right to be, and it was still bad. I remember liking Genesis, but it's been many years, and I don't think it was good. I just think it was better than I expected it to be.
Is that the one with CGI Arnie in it?
It certainly is, yes.
Yeah, there he is.
And Emilia Clarke.
Arnie, didn't they?
Yeah, and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Emilia Clarke.
Believe you not, Arnold Schwarzenegger does not have the power to just regenerate his old selves to turn him into a young man. So somehow. So they had to do a completely CGI Arnie, who I don't think he talks in the film.
No, I don't think he does. I think he just turns up naked in a bubble.
Yeah, that's what you want, really.
Like in the original Terminator, yeah. So somebody had to make CGI Arnie's butt.
Yeah.
Somebody worked on that.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I tip my hat to that person. You're doing the Lord's work.
I reckon there was a raffle.
You can, I believe in the RPG, you can play as like time travelers who can go back in time to try and prevent like the event, because the RPG I think is set in like the future where Skynet has finally taken over and humans are, on the rocks. But apparently you can just play as time travelers and go back in time. Yeah.
Yeah,
advice, and you have to make sure that Sarah Connors and that guy have a baby.
I feel like Terminator is a good. It's a good premise for an RPG because it opens up something like Blades in the Dark's, like flashback system, like the idea that you have multiple timelines, and this kind of there's a very clear objective a lot of the time in the Terminator films, which is kind of run away from robot or get squished by robot.
Yeah, and I really think the director is the best role because they can play as a robot who can turn into a puddle and just sort of slip and slide about.
I almost thought you were going to make a real point there, Meehan. I got hook, line and sinking in.
That's where you made your mistake, my friend.
But yeah, like I say, it's already on Kickstarter. It goes to April the 5th. It's made a lot of money, so it's already passed its funding goal. You can go and check out the quick start rules if you want to give it a play before you put any money towards it.
Yeah. So I'm going to fly away now because this Terminator is threatening me. So,
well, you need to fly back because this next story is also yours.
No, wait, and back to the Terminator.
And it also involves Richard Garfield.
Oh, no.
So here you are.
He's so mad. I can't go back.
He's throwing rocks out the garden.
He's throwing rocks. I don't know who's worse, him or the Terminators.
He's like Gambit with Magic the Gathering cards, just whizzing them up at the blades.
Yeah, you can do that. Keyforge, which was created by Richard Garfield. We like it. We're fans.
Good game.
Yeah, although I've not played it in a while, I would like to.
I think this hopefully will give me an excuse to.
Yeah, it's getting a free co-op mode called Keyforge Adventures, which is a nice generic title. There will be 2 episodes included in this first release, based off their upcoming, or pretty much due to come out very soon, Dark Tidings expansion, which is all about like fishes and stuff. I believe.
Nothing but fish.
Nothing but fish. So in this mode of the game, you can use whatever decks you like. Together, working together, and the first adventure includes a Keyraken. Do you get what they did there? Keyraken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like they put some effort in.
A big old monster that you have to fight together, by just attacking it and stopping it from getting ember, things like that. And then there's going to be another episode where you kind of follow this mysterious cult behind summoning this Keyraken. And there seems to be an interesting mechanic where you have to spend Ember to travel between different locations on a map, like a series of cards that you print out, and then you sort of encounter whatever's there. So it seems like they're doing some interesting things with the sort of structure of the game, playing around with that.
Sounds almost a bit like Arkham Horror, the card game.
Yeah, it sounds like Arkham Horror, the card game. Yeah.
I reckon this is a good idea because, Fantasy Flight have now got Arkham, they've got the Marvel one,
Marvel Champions.
Champions. That's the one, another generic name.
Yeah.
It's I think they've got like a long history now of making these kind of like playing against a deck together. And I really love the idea of just having another reason to use your decks. There's also, I think, a good fix for like if you've got like a Keyforge deck that you're not really that keen on. Yeah. It's kind of like, well, it's useless, right?
Yeah.
Keen.
But now it's like a challenge mode if you're playing a deck that you don't think works very well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's entirely free to print and play. And the first adventure will be available in April, the end of April, and the next one will be available in May. So you'll be able to download those from the Fantasy Flight Games website. Get on that.
Definitely one of the better trends of the last year has been publishers putting out solo variants and just generally variants for games that in an age where it feels like a lot of games could Kickstarter and it's like, oh, you need to pledge this amount to get this expansion that adds this set of rules. And so sometimes not all of them, but let's say an amount of games feel like you should just include that in the box to begin with. It's nice to see a lot of publishers just being like, here, have it for free. Like, here's a way to enjoy the game you already own in a new way with fewer people or by yourself, particularly during a time where
and
a lot
it's
of people...
smart, right? Because it's like, hey, you've bought this game, you can't play it, but here's like a variant that you can use, which, you can grab for free, and then, you're still getting something out of that product you bought, and you're still falling in love with it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, it's smart and it's nice, which is good.
Yeah.
More of this.
The perfect partner, smart and nice. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to this next one. This is kind of a Fantasy Flight adjacent, actually. There's kind of a thread running through this because Fantasy Flight is owned by Asmodee, known for owning most board game companies that aren't owned by Hasbro. So Asmodee, the owner of Fantasy Flight, which makes X-Wing, Keyforge, Arkham Horror, Twilight Imperium, owns Days of Wonder, which makes Ticket to Ride. Not Carcassonne. Carcassonne's the other one.
Zedman, you're thinking of.
Zedman is Carcassonne and Pandemic. What's the other Days of Wonder? Oh, Memoir 44.
Yeah.
Space Cowboys, so Unlock and Splendor.
Whatever.
So Asmodee owns a lot of studios, and lo and behold, it now owns even more studios.
It's absorbed more into its mass.
Because it has acquired Plan B Games and the Plan B Games group. So Plan B is probably best known for being the publisher of Azul, which is a game we like very much. They also the other Azul sequels, so Stained Glass of Sintra and Summer Pavilion. Although I think they're now under Next Move because they moved out of Plan B. But Plan B also did Century Spice Road, that trilogy. They also include Pretzel Games, which did Junk Art.
Pretzel Games are great.
And Flick 'em Up. Pretzel Games.
And Men at Work as
well.
Yeah,
Pretzel
all
Games are
wooden
really
components. Yeah, a lot of wood.
But then they also have cheaper plastic variants that you can also get. I really like Pretzel Games. I'm a big fan of the stuff they do.
They're good.
And I like pretzels, so... we're all winners here.
Back to you in the studio, man.
In the job eating a pretzel.
Plan B have also had like a really good run. Like Century is fantastic. Like Azul's really good. Reef I haven't played, but I think people like it.
Didn't they do Great Western Trail as well? Am I imagining that?
No, but related to this, Eggert Spiel, which I believe so I don't know if they're the original publisher of Great Western Trail, because I think Great Western Trail may have been it gets very messy with publishers and games in different territories.
Why are you so confusing?
Yeah, different.
Cut it out.
Different territories in different publishers in different territories. But I believe Eggert Spiel, which is part of the Plan B Games group, published Great Western Trail in a territory somewhere. But I believe it's not the only publisher.
Okay.
So the short of this is that Asmodee now owns all of them.
Yeah.
Which is in some ways strange because Plan B span out of F2Z Entertainment, which is the former home of Z-Man, which was founded, I believe, by Sophie Gravel, who then founded Plan B. And F2Z is owned by Asmodee already. So Plan B kind of... take this with a pinch of salt. I may be getting this wrong because I'm doing it off the top of my head, but I think Asmodee acquired F2Z, which included Z-Man, which was formerly founded by Sophie Gravel. She went off and started Plan B as an independent studio several years ago, 5-6 years ago, something like that. And now the studio that she founded is being bought by Asmodee anyway.
They're being reabsorbed.
So the Plan B
There's
failed
no
as well.
escape. There's no escape from the kind of black hole of Asmodee. Horrible Guild, formerly Horrible Games, actually put out the first page of Asterix. Where there's the Roman Empire closing in around the small village, I think where Asterix and Obelisk live. And they put their own logo on the tiny village and Asmodee on the Roman banner. And it was just this kind of throwing shade.
Oh my god.
Goodness me, there's gossip and hot shade.
Showing some of that patented board game professionalism.
So it's worth saying this follows a very... Asmodee acquisitions at this point are almost on a monthly basis. You pick a month, there's probably been an Asmodee acquisition during it, because they recently picked up Board Game Arena last month, I think, or the month before. So again, just kind of sucking them all in. There's name a studio and it's probably owned by Asmodee.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm gonna have to power up the chopper. I'm being sucked.
Oh goodness!
I'm being sucked in.
Mind your hair and the blades.
No, Asmodee. Asmodee is sucking me in. Do you get it?
Well, helicopters are dangerous too. It's fine. Look,
It's a complicated metaphor, all right?
I have a real rational fear of helicopters. They terrify me. But
really?
Yeah, because they are so deadly. It's just a massive spinning fan. And as a quite tall person, the idea of...
You're right. The problem with helicopters is that you ride on the side of them and your head can just go straight into the blade.
It's walking towards them. It's not the...
Matt, this is going to terrify you, but cars literally are powered by explosions. Like this.
Yeah, but I'm not, I'm not dangling out of I'm not putting my face next to the spinny bit.
Once again, not how helicopters work.
Anyway, Matt, shall we do this last news story?
We could, or I can... Look, I need to do this PSA on helicopter safety. Yes, so...
Speaking of blades, is that Wolverine?
Speaking of things shaped like an X...
Oh, come on.
Actually, don't they have a...
Shaped like an X?
Don't they have a chopper?
Probably. They have a flying
Oh, no, they have a
thing.
plane. Yeah, they have the X-Jet.
They have a plane of some sort.
All right. Alex Meehan, you wrote this one. I thought you were going to burst into it, but I'm going to set you up here.
Yeah,
right
well,
now.
You two wanted to do your puns. You wanted to do
Listen,
your
my
segues.
segue was fantastic and would have carried us right in there. So I'm not claiming any responsibility for this part of the podcast.
Oh, Alex Meehan, I'm receiving a psychic vision, much like Charles Xavier, Professor X. There's a story about a new X-Men game.
Well, Matt.
Meehan, please read out this story before we all go Jean Grey in the hair.
Oh, God. There's a new X-Men board game, called Marvel United, X-Men.
Is it a football game?
No, don't get excited.
That might have been interesting, to be fair. So.
That's how we should preface every news story. Don't get excited. Here comes the headline.
No, it's part of a series called Marvel United that began last year with the release of Marvel United. believe it or not, which is a co-op game from Simon. We're going back to that
Come
again.
on.
Come on,
yeah.
Simon.
Come on.
When
Marvel United.
when we get our soundboard, we're definitely having a come on.
I'm not having a Simon button.
No, we just have that. We have the button from those school keyboards that everyone had in the music department.
Come
where they just
on.
had a little, come on.
Yeah, we're definitely on those.
Dictionary.
Last year there was a co-op game based on the Marvel comics, which people seem to like. I've not played it, but it had like Iron Man and the Hulk and things like that. And so there's a trailer for Marvel United X-Men, which contains very little details other than the fact that there will be Professor X, Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, and Magneto featured in this game. There were the little miniatures. I'm not a fan of that art style.
Yeah, it's like
It's a bit
chibi-ish, right? Yeah.
My least favourite thing about it is that Professor Xavier now looks like Boss Baby.
He does look like Boss Baby in it. I find it quite off-putting and weird, but again, we don't know what you do in the game, how you use the characters, but presumably my hunch will be it's basically Marvel United with X-Men. Maybe there'll be a few differences in mechanics, but it will be coming to Kickstarter soon. The Kickstarter for Marvel United did pretty damn well from my remembering, so I'm sure it will do fine this time. And
Sorry, carry on.
Well, Marvel United was co-designed by Eric Lang, so
Yeah. So this is kind of the thing that I wanted to point out. What's absolutely wild. I sent this tweet to you, Matt. Eric Lang quoted on March 11th on his own Twitter account says, "Marvel United is one of my proudest achievements at CMON. The franchise truly accomplishes the vision of what a lifestyle gateway game could be. Broad market appeal, surface simplicity with surprising and delightful depth. So proud."
yeah.
That is not a quote that I would think would be attributed to a game with little chibi boys in it. So,
But I think people do like it.
Yeah.
I've also not played it, so
Yeah, we've not played it, so
the reception has been positive.
Yeah. I mean, it
it's time to
sounds...
give it a go.
The thing is, the mechanics behind it sound kind of interesting because you have a hand of cards and you have to choose... You basically have to choose what card you're going to play. But people play their turns, like, you play one card and the next person has to play their card after you. And basically, your action, the one you play after the person before you affects... Sorry, the one you play before the person next to you affects, like, what they're going to be able to do. So there's a kind of element to, okay, I want to help this person do this thing on their turn, so I'm going to play this card. But I've got to make sure on my turn I can do something to kind of help the situation as well, because you're working against like a rising threat meter, and the boss you face up against can do things on their turn to kind of mess with you, put like hench people out on the board, so there are locations that you can travel to, and then your deck basically allows you to attack those hench people or save civilians or like use your special abilities depending on what character you're playing as. So like, it does sound interesting. We've not played it, but like the Marvel thing obviously is an easy sell because Marvel is really hot right now, and X-Men are being basically absorbed into Marvel now, as far as I know. Obviously there were part of them in the comics, but when it comes to the films too, I believe. Which
apparently the only thing that matters anymore.
Yeah. But, my one hope is that it's not just the same game with X-Men characters, because I feel like you could have done that as an expansion. I feel like releasing it as a fully fledged new game, unless you're doing something unique with that, I feel like you don't have... I feel like it's very cheeky to release it as a completely new game and put it on Kickstarter if it's not going to be unique enough to kind of justify its existence.
I suppose if there will be people that are mainly interested in X-Men, right? It's like at this point the X-Men almost exist separately to Marvel. So if you've not picked it up yet, I think you're right. Like there's an element of like if you own that base game already, could you just pick up these characters as like little expansions or packs?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it is compatible with the original Marvel United, seen as part of the same series, and if it is a very similar game, it would make sense to make them compatible. But I don't know, I guess maybe I'm just old and cynical. Like, the thing is that recent X-Men game, the one that Fantasy Flight put out, I can't remember what it's called. It was reviewed on the site.
I also can't remember now. Yeah, I edited that review.
Something. X-Men colon something.
X-Men colon.
yeah. The sound of that, I was really on board, and our reviewer seemed to really like that game.
Mutant Insurrection is what. Yeah, Sam reviewed it, and she seemed to have a really good time with it. So.
And I think it's kind of based off Elder Sign, which I really like as well. So, yeah, it's not.
Oh, so that's got the same vibe as how Marvel Champions is basically like Arkham Horror, but for Marvel fans.
Well, I guess so. But apparently, it's different enough, according to the review, that it's not just Elder Sign with X-Men characters. They've actually done something with that. And if this is going to be the case with this new X-Men game, then I'm all on board. But I guess I'm just tired of seeing games that are very similar to one another coming out in the space of a very short time. And I'm just like...
It does feel like from some of the big publishers like Fantasy Flight, like Simon or whatever, there does seem to be like a sort of bread and butter that they go for.
Yeah.
And then it almost feels like a lot of them have been falling into patterns a bit.
But I don't know, I'd even say obviously Fantasy Flight makes a lot of its money off its properties that it's got, its licenses. But I'd say even then, I feel like recently they've been sort of maybe going down a path away from some of those, particularly with the way it's been, pushing off the Star Wars miniatures, for example, onto Chaos thingy thing.
Atomic Mass.
Chaos thingy thing.
Look, I can't remember every publisher name, Wills. There's a lot going on in here.
Apparently there's 400 different names for each of them anyway. So.
I don't know, I kind of feel like Fantasy Flight, I might just be wrong, but I feel like they might be drifting towards a direction of maybe, because they said we're kind of done with milking existing games for expansions, so much. And I'm hoping that means that they're going to be releasing some more, standalone IP stuff, or even stuff like Keyforge, obviously
original ideas.
Yeah, Keyforge is getting new expansions and stuff, but that makes sense because it's a deck game. It's meant to. That's kind of what it's built for. But yeah, Keyforge was something new. I'm kind of hoping they continue down that path. Whereas I feel like Simon at the moment, with this and with Zombicide, Undead or Alive, wasn't it? It's just another Zombicide game, but it's in the Wild West. And I'm like...
Yeah.
They make a lot of money, though.
They do make a lot of money, that's the thing.
It's I do understand why they do it, because, every time they shove one of those Kickstarters live, they get themselves a nice big chunk of cash, so it's
But then they release games like Cthulhu Death May Die, and, even though, obviously, it's Cthulhu, so... That's a good seller. From what I've heard about that game, it's kind of very unusual and stands out in the genre, for what it does. And that was Eric Lang too.
Yeah, I will say that, in their defense, from what Simon tend to do with their Kickstarter campaigns, they will kind of use those big name ticket items to kind of prop up some of the smaller,
fair
more
enough.
experimental titles, and they'll have them in the same kind of batch of games that are coming out. So it does seem like they're at least putting their resources to good use and trying out some new ideas with it as well. But I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
I think we're seeing it all over the place, right? It's like cinema's in a similar place where it's a lot of sequels, a lot of reboots. And I think it's because, and you especially see it with big board games that have a lot of miniatures, because they are an investment. And so you need to know that you're getting the biggest audience you possibly can, and the easiest way to do that is by going,
licenses.
here are small plastic figures of people that you already like, rather than trying to get them to invest in yet another new universe. To build that from the ground up is really hard, but to take something that is already popular and put it on top of, sometimes the gameplay can be great. Like Eric Lang does some fantastic licensed game, like the Godfather board game, Corleone's Empire, I want to say. Honestly, I think it's vastly underrated, and I think part of that is because people saw a Godfather game, and were just like, eh. But actually, it's a really good design. Like, it's a fantastic game.
I've got the same thing with Star Wars Rebellion, where it's like, it's actually just a fantastic game. Like, I don't really care about the Star Wars wrapper because I'm not really into Star Wars anyway.
Yeah,
it's just a fantastic AAA game.
I'm not against licenses in general, like, at all. Like, as long as the game is good, I don't really care if it's using a license. I just feel like if you're gonna release, a game like this in the same series, feels like putting it on Kickstarter like a year after the last game came out. I don't know, it kind of doesn't I'm not thrilled by that. I mean, it might just be because the teaser basically reveals next to nothing about it, so
yeah.
I think that is the thing, right? It's like it sells itself on the fact it's X-Men. That's
yeah.
what that teaser does. Is like, it's X-Men. Here you go. So in some ways, it's not for us, and those are perfectly valid games to play. But I think we're seeing more of that stuff on the tabletop RPG side, where people are willing to be experimental because the buy-in is so much smaller, where you can pay £5 or £10 or £15 for an indie RPG, and more people are willing to take that risk, whereas with a 50, 60, 70, £100 board game, they need to know that they're going to like part of it, even if it's just, here's a load of minis.
You can release an indie TTRPG without ever printing anything, it gives you a lot more a lot less risk rather.
Yeah. It would be good to see more original IP for sure.
I mean, Marvel, I played Marvel Champions. I'm not a huge Marvel fan, but that game is genuinely really good. I really like that game. I think it's great, and the Marvel stuff is fine. I guess.
And that's the Dicebreaker bottom line. All right, let's move on to emails. We've run over a little bit. If you've got an email for the show, you can email podcast@dicebreaker.com. You can find us on Twitter @joindicebreaker. You can find us on the website at dicebreaker.com, or you can head over to YouTube, youtube.com/dicebreaker. Wills, would you like to read this one from Savannah, please?
What a lovely name. Yeah, of course. I recently played Exploding Kittens with my brother, niece, and nephew. I can see why you all dislike it because there's really nothing special about the mechanics, only the card design. All of my enjoyment came from seeing my family having fun with the ridiculous concept, so it wasn't a total loss. Even so, this got me wondering if any of you have had similar experiences playing a terrible or even just meh game, but still enjoying it thanks to one specific part of it, or the people who you were playing with. Also, keeping all of this in mind, I was super surprised to hear Exploding Kittens was actually, oh my god, the #1 most backed Kickstarter project of all time.
I think that may have changed now with Gloomhaven.
Yeah, Fritz.
Exploding Kittens may have more people, but I think Gloomhaven is now #1 in terms of money raised.
I mean, Frosthaven.
It costs 10 times the price. Frosthaven.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you're right.
To be fair, it's a different metric, right? But whatever. Okay, because so this.
It's a lot of people either way.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. But it's the Oatmeal, isn't it? Which was like a massive comic online. Anyway, this made me wonder what everyone who backed it thought of the finished project, and in turn, if there are any games that you at Dicebreaker were really excited with, which turned out to be a bit flat. Can you think of any board games that overpromised and under-delivered? Okay, so there's kind of two questions.
Yeah, two questions here.
Yeah. So the first one being, have you ever had experiences playing a terrible or meh game, but still enjoying it thanks to one specific part, or the people you were playing with?
That's a good question.
I've had a lot of experiences where I've played a game that I'm not that into, but I like my friends, so it's fine, but I don't know about one part of it. I guess there are some games I've played where it was really naff, but at least the art was really pretty, or something like that, where it's you get at least one bit of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what those were though. There was definitely that one when me and Johnny had just started the channel. We got this. I think it was a Kickstarter game. It was like really snazzily designed. It had like a sort of forge of the God's Forge or something like that. Maybe God's Forge.
Oh, I think there was like a Dwarf's Forge or something, but I can't remember.
I think it was God's Forge, which was very pretty, but it's very boring.
I think on a similar note, speaking of
God's Forge.
Eric Lang, Bruno Faidutti and Eric Lang made a game a few years ago now called Secrets, which on paper ticked all the right boxes. Like two great designers. It was like 1960s spy stuff. It had a great art style. It had weighty kind of poker chips. And it was, like I say, a social deduction game where you are CIAs, or I think like they straight up call them hippies or something like that. And it seemed really interesting because the idea of it was that you didn't necessarily know... Yeah,
you change allegiances all the time.
Role you were, yeah. So you had to try and look at your own card, and then they'd get swapped around.
Kind of like Masquerade, I think, which was Bruno Faidutti as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. And again, on paper, seemed really great and had a really great look to it. It came in a nice box. Like the rules seemed simple, but playing it, it was just completely, just did nothing for us. Just it, like we got through it, and it's not the worst game I've ever played. Like far from it. You can kind of see where, where those moments are meant to come about, but they just never did for us.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of hidden role games that use that kind of mechanic where it's like switching allegiances and stuff. And I to be fair, I saw a lot of like positive reception to Secrets, but I've not tried it myself. And it was on my to buy list, but if you really didn't gel with it, then maybe. I mean, to be fair, that's on a very old to buy list, but like, yeah, maybe I just won't bother with it. I don't know. I feel like I've played a lot of those now. I'm also just kind of bored of hidden role games, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they need to go above and beyond to be more than
more
than Werewolf, basically.
Yeah. We don't need more werewolf games, please. Please stop. Yeah, for me, I don't know. There's been like obviously quite a few games I've played that have been like, like Subterra, like that was disappointing because I was really into like the way it looked, and I really like horror as a theme, so it kind of presented itself as like a survival horror underground experience, but it was nothing like that. It was very like by the numbers, and I was like, wow, this is disappointing for what it is. I mean, like Talisman, like I played, I think it was the Warhammer version or something of Talisman.
Oh, Relic, is it?
Maybe.
Well, that's 40k. I think original Talisman is maybe Warhammer Fantasy, but
I think it was made by Games Workshop before they really did.
Yeah.
It was like one of their first titles.
Yeah.
So I guess it's technically Warhammer, but not really.
Me, and I'm so glad that you also don't like Talisman.
I hate Talisman.
I hate it. I hate it so bad.
Talisman is
a terrible game.
It's a 40-hour game of Snakes and Ladders.
Yeah, it's awful.
Like it is quite a thing. And like there's like an app version which is alright if you're just sitting on a train, but like above that.
Yeah, it was so long and I was so bored. And I remember just sitting there and just eating, I think I ate an entire bag of Percy Pigs.
Well, look, there's your answer to the
thing is, I had fun with my friends who I was playing with, and I actually won the damn thing, but I didn't really care because I was like, I'm so, bored and tired after all this that it doesn't really feel like I've achieved much.
Well, because you don't really have any control over what you do in the
not
game,
really.
do you, really?
Yeah, I played that, and that was rubbish. Games,
rubbish.
games that we've looked forward to and have been disappointed by.
Let me tell you, whilst you're thinking,
Meehan,
about a little game called Vast.
Oh my god, that is a fine pick. Yeah.
I've never seen Alex Lilly so angry in my life. Like, after doing that playtest, like it was because let me tell you, those skeletons.
You were very excited about the skeleton.
Carl Ferrin, as always, knocking it out of the park with his art style. And oh my god, that game is so dull. And I feel really bad for like just ripping on it all the time. But God, I hated it so much.
Yeah, so it is kind of coming an in-joke with us that we riff on Vast a lot. And the thing is, it's very odd because I think the general community are a relatively positive view of Vast, the Mysterious Manor, and Vast, the Crystal Caverns. I think the one before, and they were both made by the basically the founder of Later Games. So obviously a lot of people relate Later Games with like Cole Burley and games like Root, which is just so good, and obviously Kyle Ferrin does the art for Root and Vast. So you're like, oh, how could this go wrong? It's a later game with Kyle Ferrin art.
It's another asymmetric game.
Yeah, it's another asymmetric game. And then you play it, and the thing is about asymmetric games is they can be so good if you can do them well, because it just provides an experience that has amazing replayability, and like it just fascinates you how much depth you can go into with a game like that. But when it's done badly, it just provides such a terrible experience in the sense of like Vast. My opinion on Vast, like I said in my review, it's not really changed. It's so ambitious, and that's what makes it so sad that it just like fails to draw you in, to keep you engaged, because you spend so much time trying to work out what the hell you're supposed to be doing. Because it just takes that asymmetric element and then it like blows it out massively with everything, so that you're sat there and you're looking at what someone else is doing and you're like, I have no idea what they're doing, what their goal is, what I'm supposed to do to stop them. It's such an interesting concept, and I think that's what makes it so disappointing that it just doesn't work at all. Also, the spiders would lose their legs sometimes, and that was disappointing.
I remember finding spider legs on the
spider legs on the floor of the office.
Yeah, I think it didn't click with any of us, did it? And we played it so many times because you were reviewing it, so we did sit and play it.
I'm so
in
sorry.
different combinations,
we gave it its fair due,
like a dozen different times.
I played that game about 5 times at least, I think, with multiple different people, and nobody liked it.
Which is no small feat as well, considering it's a hefty game.
Yeah, it's sad times.
I think actually both of these can combine in one for me, which is the Dark Souls board game. Which
we talked about this recently, didn't we, bud?
It's a classic Kickstarter that has pretty miniatures. Like it was based on a big name IP, and the promising thing in it is that the bosses are really fun. The boss deck is a really great mechanic. Like it makes them feel like the video game bosses because they change behavior and they have kind of set patterns that you can learn, and that bit nails the feeling of Dark Souls, the video games. But everything else is so unbearable because I'm going to get into one here. We're already running long, but I can't let this go by.
This is going to be one
Sit
of our
your butt down.
bonus episodes.
So the thing with Dark Souls, the video games, is you learn by repetition, right? It's like you walk forward, a skeleton jumps out from behind a corner, whacks you on the head with a sword, you die. You respawn at the bonfire, you go forward, you know that skeleton's going to be there, so you approach slowly, and it's like learning an old video game where you learn all the different patterns and you learn where things are going to be. Dark Souls, the board game, basically randomizes all of that. It randomizes the equipment that you get. Like, you have to save up loads of souls to potentially get equipment that you can't even equip because you don't have the right stats yet. So you just have to grind and grind and grind. And then eventually you get to a boss like 4 hours later. And the boss is like the highlight of it. And so...
Because you spent that whole time just fighting 4 skeleton dudes.
Well, you just basically throw yourself at a wall because the combat is partly dice driven, I think. It's been several years since I played it because I reviewed it and then never wanted to play it again. But the combat stuff is interesting because there's all this stuff to do with positioning. You can move around the little nodes on the board. And that comes into the bosses again. Like the bosses are the highlight because you need to position yourself. They've got decks that you can learn the patterns. So that's where that feeling of repetition and learning comes in and actually works really well. But when you're trying to just build up the equipment and the souls that you need, it's so draining to just throw yourself at room after room of enemy. Like, not be able to change much because it's based on luck to some degree. And then even when you do get the souls from defeating things, you go back, cash them in for loot, The loot's drawn from a random deck of cards, so you can just
That's
get
awful.
stuff that's not useful at all. So yeah, I really was really disappointed with Dark Souls. But the fact is, there's a good idea buried in there, and that's those boss decks. And I think that's what they've been saying. They're spinning out into Monster Hunter that's coming up. I think some of that found its way into Bard Song, although I didn't play Bard Song. Which you all seem to like.
We did play Bard Song on the channel. It had like a similar vibe, I think. But that was like, I think that was more designed to be procedural rather than sort of like retrofitting a game into procedural engines.
It's like Steamforge can make good games, and they can make good licensed games. The Resident Evil 2 board game, for what it's worth, is surprisingly good and works with that, that video game premise. But the Dark Souls board game just didn't click at all. It's way too long. It's boring. It's luck driven. It was really disappointing. And I think there's a good game to be made of Dark Souls, but that ain't it.
Bloodborne. Make a Bloodborne board game and get rid of the boring stuff.
There is one, isn't there?
Yeah, there is Come On, and there's a card game. The card game's good. I haven't played the board game, but I think people like it. Yes. All right. Thank you for your question, Savannah.
For your extra
to go
long
off
answer.
on one. Alex Meehan, would you like to read this one from Barry, please?
Yes, I will. Barry.
That is Apex Penguin to you, sir.
Yeah, come on. Barry/Apex Penguin says, have you ever had a game that, despite your best efforts, you can't get everything back into the box it came out of?
Oh my god, yeah.
God.
Pretty sure Vast. I'm pretty sure Vast had that issue as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is a real pet peeve, is when they design boxes to have the perfectly flat packed, what do they call them? The things with all the cardboard tokens in.
Oh,
my mind's gone blank. Like sheets of stuff.
Yeah, but they do have a name.
Punch boards.
Oh, punch boards.
The punch boards stacked up. And then you pop everything out, and there's no way of sorting them. There's no way of keeping them neat and making it easy. And then sometimes stuff just doesn't fit in. And it's terrible.
Before I worked here, I did some tabletop streams in my previous job, and we did an Arkham Horror stream. And the goddamn the trough,
the Fantasy Flight trough,
the Fantasy Flight trough, where it's just like it's a square box, and they've shoved a cardboard divider that basically just like cuts the space in that box to a third for some reason, and then sometimes, and this is the worst thing, sometimes they shove stuff underneath the inlay. And I was like I think we were playing like Outer Rim or something, and I was like, where are the rest of the components?
Yeah.
I had to disassemble the box to find them. But yeah, like that box is just either it doesn't all fit in and the lid is just like teetering on the edge, or you have to cram it in so hard that when you pull it out, it's just impossible to sort anymore.
I think...
oh, God.
Matt, didn't we have that with Marvel Champions as well? Didn't we have a situation where like there were just massive...
Yeah.
I think there were just massive parts of it that were just there. So they have the thing where obviously it's designed to hold the hero packs that you're going to potentially buy in the future. So I guess we had the opposite problem to you, Wills, where there were just big parts of the inlay that were just entirely empty. So we just used them to like hold the random tokens that were sort of flopping about. So there wasn't really a place to put the token, but there were loads of places to put more cards that didn't exist in the box yet. So you just had the cards all neatly stacked, this massive empty space where we just dunked all the tokens, because I don't think they provided a bag to put them in, not from my memory. So yeah, Fantasy Flight do have a track record of messing that up.
Record.
Hey!
Oh god, there's also what's the it's called like Mare Nostrum or something like that. But you that's irrelevant actually. Ignore that, because a lot of games do this. You know the classic like here's like a plastic like vacuum made inlay where all of the things fit in. But then also like I think one thing that board game publishers don't seem to understand is that like 90% of people who store their board games put them on their side. Like it's because one, if you stack them on top of each other, then they like buckle in on themselves. Two, like people put them on shelves, so you need room, so you put them on the side so that they can actually go next to each other. And three, like if your board game can only be stored in one way, then as soon as you start moving it somewhere, everything just goes everywhere. So sometimes you open up those games and you're just like, oh, okay. Like I've genuinely opened up a board game box and been like, I'm not going to play this now because it's going to take me like an hour to get all this stuff back in all the little
Yeah,
bits.
I've been in the same position. Shout out to Wasteland Express Delivery Service, which is a great game, and B, has maybe the most meticulous storage solution. I think it's Game Trays. There's like a brand that does the
I've heard
thing,
of that.
but it locks together perfectly, and there's a little guide for where everything goes, and it's designed so that you can basically get out the trays, put them on the table, and you're ready to go in like a matter of 2 minutes or something like that. And it's really smart. And the punch boards, once you punch them out, I think it's this game, they go under everything else so that everything still fits snugly, perfectly.
Yeah,
it's a really,
Bravo to that.
It's the way it should be done with every game.
Yeah. I
feel like we should just, if we ever did scores for reviews, we should dock everyone a point for their crap in. Like,
it's going to be like video game scores from the 90s where it's like graphics and sound and
I will say,
feel.
As much as I do like Overboss, the storage system for that game is not great because there's this weird like plastic lid. So it has like an inlay which is fine, although you have to put the tokens underneath all the tiles and it just looks messy because there's not like a nice little dip for them to go into. They just all overlap. But then there's like this lid you're supposed to put on top of something. It's not clear where you're supposed to put it on top of, because if you try and put it on top of just the tiles and everything, there's not enough room for like the boards and stuff. So it just kind of feels like you just have to like dunk it on wherever, and then you put the lid on and hope to God that it like just stays in place. So there you go. Nice rant from all of us there.
Just, oh God.
Yeah.
Really grinds my gears.
And with that, let's bring this podcast to an end. Thank you for your questions. You can get in touch at podcast@dicebreaker.com if you have a question or you just want to rant about storage solutions.
Yeah.
Look, we're here. We're on your side. Before we leave you, Wheels, head of video for Dicebreaker. What's coming up on youtube.com/Dicebreaker in the next week or so, and what's already up?
Well, so we've actually we had a plan, but now we're swapping it around a little bit because and this obviously would have been out by the time that you kick in. If you're watching this on the day it comes out, then it would have been 2 days ago on the Wednesday. Loli's, who has still got footage from one of the Let's Plays that we did in the studio a year ago.
What?
Is putting out a special episode on the channel of me and Loli's in the studio playing Cutterlands, which is like, it's kind of like Clip Cut Parks, but less good. But it's like a sort of
that's the way to sell it.
It's like a sort of like, you know, map making game or whatever. But like for whatever reason, we've just never had an appropriate time to put this footage out. So like literally at the start of the video, you can hear me talking about my birthday coming up or just been or whatever, when it's literally just been now. So it's been like that long since we were last in the studio. We're doing like a special "It's been a year since we've been in the office" episode Let's Play, which is going to be fun. So keep an eye out for that. On Thursday we'll play more games on the stream. Friday, obviously, this is when this comes out, and then the day after will be the third episode and final episode of Dungeon Breaker.
Oh, prepare your tissues.
Johnny Chiodini's last ever Dungeon Breaker episode. So please stick around for that. And then hopefully on Sunday, if all goes to plan, you'll have a lovely list from yours truly of all the best digital card games that you can play right now.
Oh, all right. How exciting.
Excellent
what a week.
Stuff. What a week. Meanwhile, over on dicebreaker.com, of course, we have daily news from Alex, Meehan, and Chase, our wonderful news reporter, who has written some fantastic features recently. We also have up as of, well, this podcast going live, Kieran wrote a fantastic piece about Anemon Story, which is a tabletop RPG inspired by Pokemon and Digimon, if you couldn't tell by the name, where you have an Anemon and it evolves and you have a bond with it. And it's basically Pokemon and Digimon as a tabletop RPG, but there's some really fun ideas in there, and it's very sweet. It has very colourful, good artwork. There is a list from me of the best online board games. Finally, something I've been working on for a while and have been very busy, and finally got it out. So it's games that you can play in your browser, so you don't need to download anything. You can just play them straight up, pop in the URL. So everything from Catan and Codenames to Netrunner, Keyforge is in there. There's a surprising amount where you can just play them, just jump straight in. We will have, hopefully, another list, a roundup of the best D&D settings, what you can go adventuring in, from Alex Meehan.
Yeah, I've been in the chopper flying around the world of D&D.
Yeah, flying around the Forgotten Realms.
Dragon chopper.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dragon chopper. It's shaped like a dragon, so not to alarm,
Yeah, it's a cloaked device.
We also have a fantastic feature, actually chatting with the founder and head of Inside the Box, the studio behind Subterra, funnily enough, and among other games, about how basically they sprang up out of really nowhere and came up with these really interesting, inventive ideas, including Alba, their game book, which is like over 1,000 pages long. So it's like, I think they claim it's the world's biggest game book, and it's this very ambitious project. But they've also made Subterra and Statecraft and Newspeak and a lot of kind of interesting designs. So that's a really good piece. So that'll be up this week. And of course, there'll be plenty more, but I've listed plenty enough. So we will bring this podcast to a close. Come find us on dicebreaker.com or youtube.com/dicebreaker. Go buy some Dicebreaker merch on dicebreaker.myshopify.com. It's been a while since I said it and I forgot it. Who knows, we might have some new things in the works for later this year.
I mean, yeah,
on the
fact that you're
side.
saying that doesn't give us any clues whatsoever. So
there's there's some exciting stuff cooking up.
We got some cool ideas.
We don't know when it will be out yet, but it's coming. But until we meet again, thank you for joining us, Alex Meehan.
I love it. It's great.
Thank you for being here. New head of video, Michael Wills-Whelan.
It was bloody brilliant. Okay. Oh, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Marvel United played absolutely fantastic.
Listen, the shift that Wolverine's put in for this side is...
I've been Matt Jarvis. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. We'll be back next Friday. But until then, have a lovely day. Goodbye.